Well, hi everyone, Bob here. It is January 1st, 2025, so it's a new year and hopefully I get a lot of progress done on this boat. Today's video is part 2 of mocking up the steering system back by the transom there. It's all new. Steering system, well, new in some of the old parts too. And if you missed part 1, that's episode 102, you can go to my channel and check it out, or just watch this video. So the last few days I spent going back and forth to the boat, drilling these holes in these plates. I call them plates. They hold up the rudders. And I also made some brackets here. Just you can see the epoxy here that I used to treat the plywood on the inside of these holes. And what I'm using for that is actually this product right here. Two-part epoxy made by Smith's. It's called Clear Penetrating Epoxy Sealer, or CPES for short. And it's very thin down epoxy basically, and it doesn't really build up on the surface. It just soaks into the wood, and it soaks in a lot, and it can get deep into wood. So that's why I like to use this for this kind of a thing. And how I apply it, at least in this case, was I just use this little brush like this, little cheap things I get at Harbor Freight. And I just keep putting it in there, putting it on there. And as soon as I get this one done and go to this one and do this one's kind of, you can see it's already soaked in good, so then I'll do this one. So I just keep going back and forth. I probably did it about 8 times till I could see that it wasn't really taking it and soaking it in much anymore. So that's how these are treated. That's why they look like a mess. If you see these pumps on here, these are not really made for this. These are actually West Systems pumps, but they do fit them. These holes here, the larger ones, these I'm actually going to sand and put a couple coats of West Systems in there before I paint them, just to get them smoother, because like I said, it doesn't really fill any of the roughness here. So I'm going to clean these up. And then we can bring these over to the boat. And then I guess since we're here, we'll look at the brackets a little bit closer. Just not much to it. It's just a piece of 1.5 inch angle, 3/16 stainless steel. There was a lot of work to get all these holes to be in the right spot. I had to go back and forth a few times because I wanted to drill everything on my drill press here. So it was a long day to do, not a lot of work. A long couple days, actually. But anyways, everything fits. So we're going to take a trip over to the boat and put these in, and you'll see how they look installed. All right, so we're going to put these things in here. Now, just to clear up from the last video, somebody mentioned that these bolts material didn't match this, and if I had concerns, and yes I do. But these are not the bolts I'm going to be using. These are just temporary bolts. I'm going to get bronze bolts for attaching this. This will be coming out, and when I put it in for the final time, I'll have the right bolts. I just don't have them right now. So let's get started on this one. I've already got the jack underneath, and so it shouldn't really even take that long to do. These have a little bit of an angle on here because I was trying to avoid disturbing my tabbing. Yeah, these are the bolts I'm using. They're 2 inch. They're actually stainless steel. I am going to put bigger washers on. These are just something I had temporary to put in here. Same with these nuts here. This nut, just a regular nut. It's not even stainless. But I'm going to be putting nylock nuts on when I put them in, stainless steel ones. But this is just easier to put all this together with just regular nuts right now. Okay, so there you have it. That is the install. A few things to note. You can see that collar and the flange sit pretty good. This is actually not, it moves a little bit because I only have one piece of old packing in here, so it's not really tightened up, but you get the gist. Okay, so here's the port side in, so now they're both in. Couple things I wanted to point out actually. I'm not going to actually attach this plate right now because it's a pretty tight tolerance in the hole in this plate and this, and I'm going to wait till all this is painted and installed for the final time, and then do that with the right amount of packing in and everything else in case there's some adjustment needed. All right, some of you might be wondering why I offset these bolts here, and this is the reason. I can get the socket on these without having the other one in the way. So there was a comment in the last video about asking if there was a core material in the hull of the boat, and to clear things up, there is no core material overall in the boat. It's all solid fiberglass. Now this is the core that I cut out for the rudder port in the last video, and there was a half inch of fiberglass on this side, which is in that particular area of the boat. That's how thick it was. It was already gone when they cut the original rudder port hole, so I can't show it here, but that's what it was. And this piece of wood here is the original piece that was there. And it's about 3/4 of an inch thick plywood. It might have been a slightly thicker piece, but I might have lost a little bit of it when I removed it. But you can see the difference. They use 3/4 inch plywood and a very thin, just one layer of a woven roving fiberglass on top of it. And I think in a comment I said I used 3/4 inch plywood. Well, I was mistaken there. I measured, this is only 1/2 inch plywood, and I think the reason was I was trying to keep it the same thickness overall in the end. But you can see I used less plywood and a lot more fiberglass. That's probably 3/16 to, it's not quite 1/4 inch, but it's in between the two of fiberglass. So hopefully that clears up that question, and now I can get rid of this piece of wood because I've been hanging on to it for a long time, and yeah, it's time to get rid of some stuff. Alright, what I'm going to explain to you guys here, and I set this little demonstration up, is how I'm figuring out the new geometry for the steering, and particularly in this tiller arm. Now this is the old piece that was on the boat. I just replaced this. That bronze bearing plate was right here. The rudder shaft came up here. You're standing actually on the transom side, and I'm standing in forward side. And I put these pieces of white tape on here just so you can see it better, because this is kind of dirty. But anyways, what I did was I took the tiller arm, I put it here, and fully this way, and I marked where the hole lines up, and I did the same thing on the other way. And I got these two holes right here, and I measured distance between them because that's the throw that the original steering had, and it's 8 5/8. The steering cylinder that I have only has a throw of 7 inches. So I have to follow these two center lines down until I get to 7 inches, which is right there, and that's where I marked these two. So this is the location of the hole that I have to drill on the tiller arm to make it only have a 7-inch throw, if that makes any sense to you there. Hopefully this visual helps out a little bit. So the new hole is going to be right in this area, which is nice because it doesn't go into this kind of weird forged area. Not weird, but you know, it's just a forged area. It's like an indentation. So it's all the same thickness down to here. And should give me plenty of meat on this side, you know, just as much as here, if not more. So I'm going to drill this one arm right now for that new hole. This tie rod, of course I cleaned it up and painted it nice. It used to be on the top here. So that arm over there was high, like this one. And then the bottom was where the actual steering mechanism was. You can see when I put the rack in, I got to come up with a mount over here for it. Here's the mounting area. So I had to come up with something here. My original thought on mounting that hydraulic cylinder has changed, and I'm no longer going to use that third tiller as I had originally intended to. And I will show you over at the boat why I'm not going to do that. So here we are at the boat. I have a heater running, so it's really cold in here right now. But I just set this up to show you guys where this cylinder would have been if I would have stuck with my original idea. You can see that it's not anywhere near the stringers. It's really far away from the transom, and somebody suggested attaching it to this somehow. I guess I could build some sort of bracket coming from these bolts and come across or something. I guess that's what they may have been referring to. But anyways, it's still pretty far. I still have to go a distance to catch it. I'd have to catch the other side over here somewhere. So anyways, I wasn't loving this situation. I will just go over what I actually am going to do. Alright, so I think the easiest way to explain here is to just look at the manual they give you. And this is the situation we got here with two rudders. So what I decided to do, and it wasn't any genius thinking, was to just basically copy what they're showing here. The only problem was I don't have this tab on my tie rod here. But the good news about that is I can locate this where I want it to be, and then put this tab, 20 inches away from it, and where it lands, it lands. All right, so there you have it, and there's the tab. That was a bear to do, mostly because I'm a little bit rusty with my welding, and my welder is, I bought this thing like 35 years ago with my brother. It's a Napa Handyman Special. And the thing's only really supposed to weld up to like a 1/4 inch. And that tab is like 3/8 of an inch. So I've never even welded anything that heavy before. I don't even know if I've welded 1/4 inch. And most of the heavy welding I've ever done on car stuff, I kind of left to professionals. I did the bodywork stuff and the thinner stuff. A lot of the car stuff is thin stuff anyways, but yeah, so that was giving me frustrations. The feed on that thing is not great, and it's been bad for a long time, and it hesitates, and it's really frustrating to use. I really need a new welder, but I don't have a budget to buy a welder, and my welding days are winding down, I think, so that's something I'm not going to purchase. I'm just going to do with what I have. So I had to bevel the bottom here pretty much. It doesn't look beveled, but it's beveled because I beveled it and did a root pass and then sanded it and grinded it, whatever, flat disced it, and then did some passes over here to make it look like a filleted in. But yeah, it's on there solid, but I was having fits with it, believe me. It took me 4 tries just to get it tacked on there because I couldn't get the thing to just stay where I wanted it to stay, and that's mostly clamping. But yeah, anyways, in the end it came out really looking nice. I threw a quick coat of paint on it last night. Probably will paint this whole thing later again, one more coat just to clean it up, but I think that's going to work good. Now I'm going to bring it over to the boat, and we'll start fitting in other things. So let's get over there. And before we go over, I just wanted to point out something I found pretty interesting with this tie rod. It was galvanized steel pipe. But when I was welding it, I was worried that the air in there may expand. And since these are kind of sealed on the ends, I thought maybe something might crack or do something weird. So what I did was I drilled a little vent hole right in here just while I welded. So I drilled the hole and I put it on my workbench like this, and when I came back there was a puddle of oil there. So apparently what they did is they didn't fill it with oil, but they put oil in there before they capped the ends, or capped one of the ends, I guess, just probably to keep it from rusting. So that made it a little more challenging when there was oil dripping out of here. I ended up having to tape it up in the end and hoping it would just blow the tape out or do something if it did have some trouble with expanding air. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. It is oil. There is oil inside of this thing, just enough to coat all the walls. All right, so here's the setup with the tie rod installed. Now you can see the old hole. I'm going to trim these off some point. I had this plumb bob in here because right now this is set up to steer straight ahead, centered. So what I did was took a dimension from this shaft to the pin on that side, and then from that shaft to the pin on this side, and I made sure they were even, and that's how I know it's centered. So I put this plumb bob, and this is just for demonstration, so it might not be perfect, but I got it on the center of that pin. So now when I turn this thing this way, I got to turn it so that it's 3.5 inches over, and that's going to be where it has to be fully over to one side, and I'll explain why it has to be fully over to one side in a second. This is where the cylinder is going to be. The diagram I showed this distance as 2 inches. I made it 2.5 because I wanted the cylinder to be a little further away from this bar. I thought that was a little close, as you can see here. But the significance of shifting it all the way to one side is that when it's in that position, either one way or the other, doesn't matter, this is parallel to this. So it's easier to position this because I have it 2.5 inches over here, then it's going to be 2.5 inches here, so I can get it lined up right. So because what happens when it starts, in this case, turning that way, because the tiller is going to be on an arc, it's going to start coming out over here, And so what has to happen is there's a pivot point right here on this cylinder, and this cylinder can move this way, back and forth. So that makes up for it as it goes through the motion. The cylinder will turn this way, and then as it gets past the midpoint, it'll start going back that way. So that's how this works, and that's how I set this up and got this positioned. Now, where it's positioned is basically, it's not quite centered on this stringer, but it's pretty close. And so now I can just make a bracket from this stringer up to, I don't know if you can see it because it's dark, but maybe it'll adjust, to this beam right here. Probably on the back side of this beam. It'll come down. So it'll be behind here. And then I'll have a little plate that comes out that this will bolt to. So anyways, that's what I have to start measuring for and working on. Well, I learned my lesson not to talk too sarcastically about my welder because the next day my regulator broke. I had to buy a new one, so sorry about that, old Napa handyman. Well, here's the first look at the bracket I'm making, support, fitting it at the bolt right now. I tacked, well, you can't really see on that side, it's too many clamps, but this side you can see there's 2 angles, one on either side, 4 holes, and I had them tacked on to this one and the other one, but this one, when I brought them over there to fit them, I made them like mirror images of each other, and this one was nice and plumb, but this one was tilting towards this one at the top, so that's just telling me that the stringer, this side is plumb on it, this side may have a little epoxy or fiberglass buildup or something, so it was kicking it in at the top. So what I ended up doing was drilling a hole in it, temporary, and putting a bolt through here, and then cutting off all my tack welds. And then when I came over here just now, I just clamped this on, and then I was able to pivot this piece until it was plumb. And then I tightened the bolt and clamped this. The reason why I have to go through all these acrobatics here is because I really don't want to bring my welding equipment over here, and I really don't want to weld on the boat because there's a lot of wood and there's all this epoxy. It's just going to spatter and ruin things. So I'm taking a slow route and just doing stuff at home, tacking it together, bringing it over here, fitting it. If it doesn't fit, I figure out how to clamp it together so I can get it to fit. So it's just taken me a long time. And I'm also finding out that this beam up here isn't exactly, perpendicular to the stringer. It's cocked a little bit off. Not much, very little, but if I just put these pieces in, it won't line up with the bracket I'm making up there, which you can't see right now. But anyways, this is the progress, and I gotta go home and weld this one up and finish doing the welding on that side and get these done. And then I have to figure, I'm probably gonna have to drill the actual holes in the stringer to get these two things to line up with each other. Because I'm having trouble getting this one and this one at the same height. And I'm worried if I don't get them at the same height and then I drill the holes, they're not gonna line up. But the chances of them lining up anyways are gonna be a little off, but yeah, we'll figure that out. But anyways, that's the progress right now. All right, well, it's a Sunday morning, winter morning, I would add. It's 11 degrees outside, Fahrenheit right now. And you can see here I've made some progress on this bracket. Now, it's still not all welded together. I've got an angle up here that's going to attach to the beam, a cross beam for the deck. And then these two posts are not welded together. They're just clamped together with some spacers in between. And I got them bolted together at the bottom here. And part of the reason I did this is to show you guys kind of how this is going together and explain what I'm going to be doing today. And then part of it's for myself. But the reason why I want to show you guys this is because I'm not going to film what I'm going to be doing over there today because it's too cramped of an area and it's too cold. So the goal today is to get this upper angle here attached to this post, and if I have time, attach this post to it. So here's the posts. They're all been welded and ground and everything on my welds. The welds in the back here aren't the greatest, but I don't really care. It's all looking good enough. And then we go up. There's going to be probably some cross pieces in here, but right now I just have some pieces of wood with some shims to get it the right distance. And then up here we have this bracket, this angle bracket. It's just an angle, basically, with a couple holes in it, and that's what these posts are going to be welded to. And if I could do this with one hand, yeah, the cross beam goes this way up here under the decking, and that's how it'll be bolted on, something like that. But the beam that runs here and the stringer down below are not really like perpendicular to each other, so this actually, it doesn't angle this much, but just for talking purposes, it's tilted this way. So I can't just weld these on here and expect this bracket to fit nice and flush against the beam and have these be sandwiching the stringer. It just, it's not going to work. So I have to kind of tack things and work that way. So my idea is to tack it in this corner here now, because I have it all clamped together, and then bring it over to the boat and clamp this to the beam and clamp this to the stringer with this one not even in play right now. And that'll give me the angle, that'll give me the angle, and I'm hoping it just pivots a little bit on the tack weld there. And then once I get that pivot in there, then I've got this little piece of angle here clamped on, and I'll just clamp it in place. So there'll probably be a little slight gap on this side between this and the angle, and this side it'll be tight. And yeah, that's the first process, and then I'll drill holes in the stringer for this, bolt it on. I can bolt this on, and then I can fit this post over there. I think I'm gonna make these holes over here larger, because there's no way I'm gonna get all these holes lined up drilling through the stringer. And then this piece can kind of move whatever way it needs to move, up and down and this way, to get it to line up with these holes in the stringer and sit nicely like it does right now on this thing. So then I'll tack this on and away we go. So I'm going to do all that and weld it all up, and hopefully I can get that done today or the next couple days. I have some time off from work. It's the holiday season, and it's not the holiday yet, but this after Christmas I'll have time off between Christmas and New Year. All right, so before I get a little further along with this support structure, I'll give you an update on how it's going. I'm not filming much of building it, but all I have to do is weld these sleeves in and grind them flush. What they are is just this, it's all stainless 3/16 tube. It has a 3/8 inch inside diameter and a 5/8 inch outside diameter. And it's actually a little more than 3/8, so a bolt can actually fit in there. That'll just stiffen up this thin wall tubing when I bolt the bracket on. So I got to get going with that. That's the next thing I'm actually going to do. And then I've got the actual plates built over here. This is the plate that the cylinder actually sits on. It's already drilled for it. It's going to go kind of in here. And then this is, I call this the back plate. This is the part that actually bolts to these 4 holes. And then these 2 plates will be welded together. And I'll put some gussets on the sides over here, so it'll be a nice stiff bracket. With this piece here, just one thing to note, it's 1/4 inch stainless. I have to space this other one 3/8 of an inch off those vertical posts here. And so I was 1/8 inch shy on that, so I cut a slot in the back of it and bent it over to do that, and I'll weld up that slot when I weld these 2 pieces together. So that all fits together pretty good. I've had it all mocked up at the boat. So now I got to weld those together too, and then fit them at the boat. So I'm kind of on a crunch time. I'm not really filming the welding of all this stuff. I just had to, I ran out of gas this weekend. I was going to do that this weekend. It's Monday now, but I ran out of gas. So I had to wait until today to go pick up some gas. And it's a holiday week, so things are a little bit off too as far as the time I have to do this. So I'm just going to weld it up, bring it over to the boat, and I'll show you how it all fits together. So I'm just about ready to weld up this bracket. I tacked the 2 large pieces together just in the corners here, test fitted at the boat. But when I tacked these, this whole angle wanted to change. It wanted to pinch together because it's heating up here and pushing this plate this way. So I'm going to weld these gussets in here first. And the way I'm going to weld these in, I put a bevel on this gusset piece, and I'm going to weld in this groove. But after looking at this, I think I'm going to bevel this piece too. Just because it looks a little tight. I don't know if I'm going to get down in there all the way. And that's all. That's how I'm going to weld it together. So I'll show you the other side piece. This is the other piece. Goes in the other gusset, so you can see it's beveled. That's how I'm going to weld these in, just because my welder struggles a little bit with 1/4 inch steel of any sort. So yeah, I'm gonna do it that way. I think it's gonna look out a lot nice and clean, and I can grind all this smooth over here. Well, there we have it, the finished bracket. You can see why I like to do that bevel, because it leaves the inside pretty clean, because all the welding's on the outside. I'm glad I did put that. I did have to sand it to get the staining, or actually just from the heat of the welder. I just sanded the whole inside, get rid of all the bluish tinge there. But yeah, I was glad I put that extra bevel on, because made it. Yeah, it would never have penetrated in there. So that was worth doing. But there it is. Yeah, came out good on this part. There's a couple little spots here that I could probably just hit with the welder very quickly and sand it. This is just where the groove was, where I cut in there to bend it over. But, this is the actual joint where the 2 pieces of meat is actually right here. So that's it. I guess the only thing left to do now is to just go fit it on the boat. Maybe I'll stop and get the right bolts. But yeah, let's go do that. I've got a lot of the components already installed here. Decided to put the tillers up the top here, and I still kept this one on the bottom, and the only reason why I'll keep it here is because I could use it as a stop. I don't think a stop is required with this steering system, but they say if, I think, in the instructions. I'll have to look at it again, but if I want to put one in, I can make some kind of bracket off these bolts, and this will kind of run into it. That way I don't have to come way up here to put a stop in. So for now, I'm leaving it on here. I still may cut this end off and clean these up where I re-drilled back here. Don't really need it, but it really still works, functions with it there, so I don't have to. Of course, I got the cylinder in. It's not bolted on the bottom here, but it's in where it's going to be. This is full hard to starboard. And I'll cycle it through. I'm just pulling this tiller over here. And you can see right here is where the whole thing pivots, but I'll hold it back here and you'll see that how it actually works. That's about straightforward right there. So you can see it's now angled, it's pivoted on this area right here. And that's how it goes, and then we'll go full over. There we go. That's full over to port, and it's back to the same place it was where it started when it was full starboard. So that's basically how it moves and pivots and makes up for the fact that this is moving in an arc. These are the inlets and outlets for the hoses. This is the side the hose goes on. I'm going to clock these 180 degrees around so the hose comes out on this side, because I want to bring it over to the transom and then up and along up to the helm station. So I'll turn those around when I get the install done. And that's about it. Now, before anybody comments, these bolts are probably not the ones I'm going to use in the end. They're just for mock-up. Some of them are longer, some of them aren't the right material. But yeah, they're just there for now. So that's the steering system as it's going to be. And we'll revisit this at some point in the future. And the next thing to do with this is to tear it all apart. But I'm not going to do that until the spring, because I just like looking at it here. It looks like something's finished. Alright, well, now that that part of the video is over with, we're going to talk about what I'm going to be working on in the immediate future. And that is these. You may recognize these if you've been following along. These are like a removable drain channel. Goes in between the hatches. This one happens to go right here on the port side, between that hatch and where I'm standing over here. The problem with these, as you can see, they just sit in here. They need some sort of bracket on this end here, on either end, that they can bolt down to hold them in place. I also want to incorporate some sort of like a lining pin to align these hatches, because these are just drop-in hatches. They don't have hinges on them. So when you put them in, I don't want them to wiggle around. So I'm going to try to incorporate that. So since I have all the welding gear out and the metal working going right now, I might as well finish those and get those knocked off the list. So that's one of the projects I'm going to be working on over the next couple months, which are the winter months. Don't really come over here too much. try to stay away this year just because it's too cold, but I will have to be over here for some things. Another one's going to be prepping the teak that I was originally on this cockpit area. I've got started on it. I still have to remove some from some hatches and work on prepping that because I want to reuse that as much of it as I can to cover up this cockpit area. I'm going to have to buy some supplemental stuff, but that's one of the things on my list to get done hopefully this year, is to get this all teaked in. That's pretty ambitious, but it's something I really want to do, because the overall plan for 2025 is to get this boat dried in, which is a term for a house, I guess, but you know, get this hatch finished here, the door on, get the glass back in it, just have it so I could take off the shrink wrap and it wouldn't really leak too much into the boat. I mean, it will back here because I'm not going to do all the caulking between all these modules I have for this deck back here, because I'm going to be pulling them all out when I start doing engines and stuff, so I don't want to go that far. But I just really want to get all this outside stuff done. That also includes doing the epoxy barrier on the bottom, and maybe start on the gel coat cracks on the actual upper part above the water line, because not next year but down the road I'd like to paint this hull as well. So that's another project that's going to be coming way down the line, but we're sticking to 2025. So yeah, those are the main things I want to get done. I want to finish prepping all this engine compartment, sanding it, getting the bulkhead underneath there done. And yeah, I've got about 25 projects that I'd like to get completed and have done. I want to redo the shrink wrap framing here as well, so I can get at some other things I can't get at right now. Like I want to put the foredeck hatch in as part of you know, drying in this whole boat. And the real icing on the cake, if I can do it in the fall, would be to get this boat re-shrink wrapped and actually get some footage of the boat without shrink wrap on it, which I haven't seen in probably 4 or 5 years since I've stopped working on the front here. So that would be really cool, and that would really fit into making the targets. Like I said, I won't go too far in the future past that, besides painting the actual hull, because a lot of that stuff depends on what I get done this year. So all that stuff would just be, you know, basic fantasy world stuff. But no engines are on this list, so don't even, you know, inquire about that, because that's not happening. That's not even going to happen for the earliest would be 2 years. I don't even think I could do that here at this marina, because although they're making improvements, they're not there yet, and I don't even know if they're going to get to that point where they could actually help me do engines. So I probably will have to move the boat, I think. I'm not sure, but that's too far in the future to really speculate on. I know that's what everybody wants to know, but that is not happening next year or this year now, or even the year after. Not even 2026. 2027 will be the earliest, and even that's really pushing my my future crystal ball. So anyways, that's going to be it. That's going to wrap up this video. I'm not going to put that drain channel thing in its own video. Probably mix in a bunch of little stuff. There may be other things I get into. I'm not expecting to put out any kind of video in the next couple months. Hope everybody had a nice holiday season. Happy New Year to everyone. I was hoping to get this out before New Year, but didn't really happen, or even the holidays. So that's the way it goes. But hey, I'm starting off the new year with an early video, which is good. And hopefully we'll have many more this year with a lot of progress. Take care, everyone. See you soon.